Hey guys, hey, welcome back to the channel. Or if it's your first time, hello, and it's lovely to have you here. So, I'm gonna share my journey on how I became a therapist at the age of 26. Now that I'm officially qualified, registered, and I have a few of my own clients in my private practice, I'm gonna tell you how I got here. So let's take it all the way back, like all the way back to when I was like a teenager, because little seeds were planted along the way that got me to this point. And this is also hopefully to show young people that you don't have to wait until you've had lots of life experience or you've already had a career to change it to become a counselor. You can become a counselor at any age, at any time in your life. Okay, this is one of those careers that you do not need to be super experienced. You just need to be dedicated and have the passion and the commitment. So like, where did I even get the inspiration to start on this journey? So I don't actually know where my love for psychology came from, but this journey started with my love for psychology. I don't really remember exactly when and how the seed was planted, but all I remember is that when I was like in secondary school, so I think I might have been about in year 9 or year 10, and I had a friend who was in a different secondary school, but she was in the year above me. So I think she was in year 10 and she'd already started her GCSEs or something like that. And I remember she would talk to me about this subject that she did called psychology. And I didn't really know what psychology was. My school didn't offer psychology, but I knew about it from somewhere. Maybe maybe TV shows, maybe the internet, I don't know. I mean, this was like 2012, 2013. So social media and the internet wasn't what it was today. Streaming services weren't around at that time. So I don't really know where I heard about psychology from, but I remember whenever she'll talk to me about it, I found it so interesting and I enjoyed it so much. And I remember envying the fact that my school didn't teach psychology, but her school did, because I knew at the time that, like, some schools would teach some subjects and some schools didn't, and unfortunately my school didn't teach psychology but her school did. So whenever she'll talk to me about it, I'd be so fascinated, and I remember just being really excited to eventually get to do it myself one day. So of course, eventually now, when sixth form, I went to a sixth form. Sixth form college is the same thing in the UK. For those of you that don't study here, it's the same thing, slightly different in structure and format. But a sixth form is usually attached to a secondary school or a high school, whereas a college isn't usually attached to a secondary school or a high school. It's independent. I ended up going to sixth form all the way in West Bromwich. And I remember I remember obviously picking psychology. Psychology was my favorite subject, still is to this day. And I remember just being I really enjoyed reading all the books. I remember enjoying like all the homework. I remember enjoying just reading all the studies. I think there must have been a few topics that I didn't like. Research methods. Nobody likes research methods. But anyway, I digress. So I just remember really enjoying A-level psychology, where most people dropped it after 1 year. Most people didn't really enjoy it even in second year. I thoroughly enjoyed every single moment of it, and I was really like happy to finally be doing psychology. So at this point, I'm 16 going on 17, going on 18, and I did psychology for 2 years alongside sociology, applied business, and philosophy and ethics. That was what I did my second year. In my first year, I actually did chemistry, biology, psychology, and applied business, but then I dropped sciences, and then I picked up philosophy and ethics and sociology in my second year. So that's what I did. But strangely enough, for some reason at this point, I actually hadn't considered doing psychology at university. As much as I loved it, I don't know why, I just didn't want to. Actually, I think I remember why. I don't know if my dad is going to watch this, but I think at this time, I was really like thinking about my future, like, university, what do I want to do with my life? And of course, at this time, for those of you who are African or, Asian, the typical thing of like our parents want us to be doctors, they want us to be lawyers, they want us to be engineers. So at that age, it was being instilled in me, like, you want to become a doctor or a lawyer or something. But for me in my house, it was like, doctor, like doctor. Like, do you want to be a doctor? What about being a doctor? Have you ever considered being a doctor? Doctors get paid good money. So for me, the whispering and the programming was like towards being a doctor. So that reminds me, that's why I hadn't considered doing psychology at university. I hadn't considered it because my mind was like, okay, I might as well become a doctor. I can do something as a doctor that interests me. And I remember researching like different types of doctors you can be. You can be like an eye doctor, you can be a surgical doctor, you can be like, so I was just looking up like things that would interest me, because I didn't want to be like a doctor, like a typical doctor. I didn't want to be a surgeon. I didn't want to work in like a GP surgery either. So I was trying to figure out like, okay, what would really interest me? and also what am I actually capable of, because although I was doing really well academically, I wasn't the type of student to get all A stars across the board. I got a few A stars, no, I got one A star, and I got a few A's, and I got a few B's, and I think I got like 2 or 3 C's, but for the most part I knew I wasn't going to get all A stars, so I had to be also realistic. I was also considering like, okay, you're definitely not going to be able to become this kind of doctor because look at the GCSEs that you're likely to get. So I was kind of, looking around, and I got to a point where I was like, you know what, I can be a neuroscientist because I can still become a doctor in that area where I'm working with the brain and I'm working with the mind. So in that way, my love for the mind and understanding the mind was still there. It's just that as a doctor, it would be more like researching the mind in a lab, essentially doing lots of tests and stuff like that. So that's the route I was considering, and that's the route I was going down. So actually now A level, I was actually thinking about going to university and doing neuropsychology, and initially that's what I had planned. That's what my UCAS application was for. That's where my mind was at. But then I think I had to change because I dropped chemistry and biology after first year, so that was no longer an option. I could no longer then consider neuropsychology or being a neurosurgeon. I couldn't consider that anymore because you had to have sciences, and I was doing terribly at A-level science. I did amazing at GCSE science, but at A-level science I did appalling. Like it just wasn't clicking for me. It just wasn't, it just wasn't working. And I just assumed because I did so well at GCSE that, I would eventually get it, but it wasn't working. And I didn't want to spend 3 years at sixth form. So I just dropped it and I did something that would work a bit better for me. So I ended up doing philosophy and ethics and sociology. Sociology I hated, but I did really well in it without even trying. So that was my time during sixth form. So by the time I got second year, I had to obviously think about, okay, I can't do neuroscience, I can't be a neuroscientist. So psychology then came to my mind again. I was like, oh yeah, like I still love psychology, but I can just still do psychology. I might not become a doctor, but hey ho, it is what it is. Let's be realistic here. I can't get A stars in science, I can't get A stars in biology and chemistry, so let's go with my strengths. So I went down the route of psychology. And I found my UCAS application that I wrote for the universities, and it made me laugh. It was so dramatic. Like, I don't know how those people read it and actually took me seriously, because it was just the funniest thing. It sounded like it was written by a 12-year-old. But anyway, it got me into uni, so thank God. So, now we're done UCAS and then got into university for psychology. And I started doing psychology undergrad. And at this point, I hadn't really decided exactly what I wanted to do in psychology, but I knew that I was really into it. And then at this point, I'd already gotten into fitness. I'd gotten into fitness around the time I was in sixth form, around 16. In general, throughout my teens, I was always obsessed with fitness and health and my body, although at the time I did it in an unhealthy way, like calorie counting and stuff. But I got to a point where I started to actually take health seriously and be more informed about how to be healthier. So by the time I got to university, I was really interested in like sports and exercise psychology. And I don't know when and how, but I was also interested in counselling psychology. Because later on, when I was in third year of uni, I remember I found this piece of paper that I had written when I was in first year of uni. And to be honest, I have a vague memory of writing this piece of paper where I had to put sports and exercise psychology on one side of the paper and then counselling psychology on the other side. And I'd written like the two paths. I'd written them on the same piece of paper on the same side, just next to each other, and I'd written like a timeline of how long it would take me to become fully qualified and to be registered in that field. And for sports and exercise psychology, there was a 3-year undergrad degree that I was doing in psychology and a 1-year master's. And then for counselling psychology, it was going to be 3 years of undergrad and 3-year masters. And I was like, 6 years, more money, more time. So I was like, nah, I'm not going to do that. I'll go with sports and exercise psychology. So that was my plan. And I wrote that sheet in first year and I completely forgot about it. Like completely. As in when I found it in third year, I was like, wait, what? When did I write this? And I was like, what? So I was just like going through like first year of uni, second year of uni, third year of uni, from the age of 18, 19, 20, 21, just casually like, just thinking, yeah, I'm just going along. I'll decide what to specialize in. And at that point, I think I'd kind of forgotten about sports and exercise psychology. I was still really, really into fitness, but at the same time, I also had forgotten about counselling psychology until got into third year of university. And that's when we had to pick modules that we wanted to do. So there was a lot of options. There was like forensic psychology, there was personality psychology, clinical psychology, counselling psychology, neuropsychology. I remember I picked that module as well. So there was quite a lot of modules to pick from. So I picked I think I picked a few. I can't remember all of them, but I picked like 4 or 5. I don't like clinical psychology, but it was the one that I didn't mind doing, so I picked that one out of all the other options. And I would have done forensic psychology, but I think it clashed with timetables, so I had to pick clinical. But counselling psychology, to say the least, was my favourite, of course. So I think in that final year of uni, when I was doing that module in counselling psychology, it really like finalized that choice for me, that this is what I want to do with my life. And it was so enjoyable. It was my favorite module. Like, everything just came easy, and I just found myself being so enthralled in the seminars, even though seminars were like 2-3 hours. I think sometimes they were like, I can't remember exactly, I think they were like 2 hours. Time would fly so much for me because I just enjoyed everything I was learning. So now I'm in 3rd year, and I'm 21, and I'm almost finishing. So I start thinking about my future, like, okay, once I finish this degree, I can't just go home and start working. Like, I need to actually specialize in something in order to really be a psychologist and established in the field. Because if you just go home with a psychology degree, it's not gonna be easy to find employment in psychology. You need to at least have a master's to get somewhere. So I started doing my research, and I remember looking up like counselling masters and counselling PhDs, and everything was just like 3 years. And I remember just being like, what, why? And I literally remember being so sad. I was like, another 3 years of uni, like I've just about finished this 3 years, why do I have to do another 3 years? And I was under the assumption that all master's degree were 1 year. Like, I had never heard of like a 2-year master's degree or 3-year master's degree. So I was just under the impression that, finish this and I'll just do my 1 year and be done. And this is how I know I'd completely forgotten about that sheet of paper that I wrote in 1st year, because in that sheet of paper it clearly stated that it was going to take me 6 years to be qualified, because I would have to do a 3-year master's, but I'd completely forgotten about it. And I remember being so sad that like I called one of my parents and I told them, and I think I sent in the group chat, and they were like, and I literally felt like crying. Like, I could feel the tears of the thought of having to do 3 more years of uni before I could become qualified. And my parents were like, yeah, you can do it, go on, we'll support you, we're here for you. And I was just thinking, that's not what I want to hear right now. I just want someone to cry with me. Like, what do you mean we're here for you? What do you mean? I mean, they definitely were here for me, which I appreciate, but at the time it just felt like, no, can nobody hear me? I have to do another 3 years. What do you mean, yay? Like so I went through that, and I was like, you know what, after some time I started thinking about it, and I was like, kind of warmed up to the idea, because I started doing my research early, just as I was starting 3rd year. So I started doing my research, so I started warming up to the idea. I was like, okay, another 3 years, not so bad. I just need to pick somewhere I enjoy. And you know what, I started seeing the pros of it, I started seeing the positive in it, and after a while, like, I was actually really excited. I was like, yeah, finally, I can't wait, I'm looking forward to this. So I don't know why, I can't remember exactly, but for some reason I started researching PhDs, and none of them like required a master's degree. All of them were like, as long as you've got enough experience, as long as you've got like a minimum of a degree that's relevant, and you've got like a lot of experience in mental health, you can apply. So I was just like, cool, that's nice. Like, I don't have to do a master's, I can just go straight to a doctorate. Yes. So me being naive, and the thing is, I had no one to guide me. Like, I even tried to speak to my university lecturer, who was like the counselling psychology module leader, but she was from America, so all her education in counselling was in America, so she had no idea like how to even explain to me what to do in the UK, because she had no idea herself. And I went to the careers hub, and they fed me the same information that I found when I was doing my own research at home. So I was like, okay, you guys don't know anything else, you don't have anything else to offer. So I was literally just going into this blind. I didn't know anybody who had gone into counselling, I didn't know anybody who was a counsellor or working as a counsellor, so I literally was just figuring things out on my own blindly. I then went to a few open days. I remember I went to Manchester's doctorate open day, I went to Roehampton's doctorate open evening, and then at some point I went to Bristol's open day as well. And that's when I then realized that you had to do this thing called like the level 3 diploma. So I started looking that up, and I was like, damn, okay, I got to do this level 3 diploma, can't get onto this doctorate unless I've got this diploma. So I started looking up this diploma thing, because I needed that to be able to get even onto the masters. So I then started looking at level 3 diplomas and where to do them as soon as I finished my undergrad. So I did my research, and I found somewhere and I applied. So by the time I came home during summer, I then applied for it. I went to a college that was actually quite close to my old sixth form, like down the road from it. I applied for it and I got in, starting at level 3, and I just did the level 3 only. She was like, well, you just did psychology, you don't really need to do level 2, you can just skip it and go straight to level 3. So I did my level 3 and I was so happy. And around that time when I'd started in like September, I started applying for the PhDs for the universities that I liked, that I'd gone to see. And of course, no surprise, I think a few months later, like January, February, they all like rejected me because like I didn't have enough experience. So I wasn't like too bummed, I wasn't like too disappointed. And then I was like, okay, it is what it is, we need to go do a master's. Cool. So around this time, COVID had just hit. Like, it was now, so I just graduated July of 2019, came back home that summer, applied for my level 3 diploma. I started that in the September of 2019 when I came home. And then the following year, like a few months later, in March of 2020, that's when lockdown started in the UK. So around that time, I was like re-strategizing, thinking like, okay, what should I do? And at this point, it was too late to apply for the master's courses because they were closed at this point. So I was like, cool, I can just think about applying for the following year instead, 2021. So the whole of 2020 I was at home, and of course it was the pandemic and everything, and I finished my level 3 diploma by like June or just before June, because of lockdown. No, I think I might have finished in April, actually. Finished really early because of lockdown, and we hadn't been able to transition to online, so we finished it early. So I finished that, and then I stayed at home for the remainder of that year. But in the remainder of that year, I was making an effort to make sure that I got my experience. I had started working in the mental health hospital. I'd been there for almost a year by the time it was November, so I put that in my application, and I had my level 3 diploma, so I put that in my application for my master's. And it was really easy to kind of just talk myself up because I'd been working in mental health, I'd done my level 3 diploma, I had just finished my psychology degree, so things were working in my favour, to be quite honest with you. And so I applied to Roehampton, I applied to Derby, and I applied to, I think it was Leeds. Was it Leeds? And so I applied to those 3 universities, and it was a long process, and I've done lots of videos on my channel about the application process, how to write a good personal statement, and even how to fix your CV, because some might ask for your CV. So all of those videos will be tagged in the description box if you want to watch those afterwards as well. Anyway, continuing with the story. So now it's kind of like towards the end of 2020. I've done my applications. I've submitted all of them, but I think by the end of like November, December, I had submitted all of my applications because that's when normally they're due. Normally by that time they'll close by like January or February latest. Even then, that's really late. It's best to apply maybe around October, November, December time, so that they look over everything before Christmas. So the following year, in 2021, early 2021, I had a few interviews, I think February, March. Like I said, I did a video on my interviews as well. So all the details of how the interviews went, what the procedure was like, are all in that video if you want to watch that as well. So I did my interviews, they were all online because at the moment we still had a few lockdown rules. It wasn't super strict, but people were still being very cautious. So all my interviews were online, and they were all very different interviews, very interesting interviews. And most of them got back to me very quickly. I think one of them got back to me within a few days. Some of them got back to me a few weeks later. But by April, I remember I got accepted into the University of Roehampton, which is in southwest London. So I got accepted into Roehampton University, and that was my first choice. Because remember, when I applied for the PhD, that was like one of my options. It was one of the places that I went to see. So when I went, I actually really fell in love with it. So when I got accepted for the master's, I was so happy. Like, that's where I wanted to go. So that was like around April of 2021, and so I had a few months until September 2021 where I would then be starting my master's in counselling and psychotherapy. So, you know, I was really excited, and you know, all the stress of doing the applications and the diploma were all done and dusted, and I was just ready to go. And then I applied for, you know, Student Finance England to support my financing for the university course. And of course, I think I've talked about this in a lot of other videos about how I really should have saved, and I didn't save money for this. So I really did struggle financially. Got lots of videos on that as well in the finance playlist. sharing the different things that I used and what worked for me. Once I started my masters, I think most masters for counselling and psychotherapy are slightly different depending on the university, depending on which therapeutic approaches they teach. So at my university, our structure was like the first year is just all theory, and then second and third year you'd carry on with the theory, but you're also doing your first year placement and second year placement, and you're expected to get a minimum of 200 hours. Most of it should be in person, and then the other bit should be online. And I think this was quite nice. I did enjoy this. It wasn't like stressful. I think it was nice that we didn't have to do placement from the get-go, and you also had to do personal therapy every single year for a minimum of 35 hours each year. So you could take a break in between, which I normally did. I personally saw a different therapist each year because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to experience different therapists and how they do therapy with different approaches. So I really enjoyed that. That was my preference. Most people stuck to the same therapist for the whole time because that's what they wanted to do as well. So I have done a lot of story times. I've done a lot of vlogs detailing what the day in the life was like at uni. I did placement vlogs. I did a week in the life of vlogs. So you can definitely watch all of those if you want to know a bit more about what it was like during that time, because I don't remember every single thing right now, but some of the videos were done at the time when I was going through certain things. So you'll see exactly what it was like, what I was feeling, what I was thinking at the time, if you want to watch those as well. I have a playlist called Vlogs. And yeah, it was difficult because I almost dropped out. Like one time the university actually almost kicked me out of uni. They were like, listen, you got this X amount of time before we have to kick you out of the course. So yeah, I did a video on that as well because boy oh boy, it was a struggle. Like I didn't think I was going to make it. Like it was actually the hardest thing I've done in my life was doing that master's degree. And if any soul had told me prior to starting it that I would struggle the way I did, I probably would not have done it. I kid you not, I probably would have just been like, you know what, forget it. I'll just go and do sports and exercise psychology 1 year, in and out, done and dusted. Because what do you mean 3 years of complete struggle? What do you mean 3 years of difficulty? What do you mean 3 years of complete pain back to back? Like, no, it was just too much. Like, I'm still coming out of it now, but it's hard for me to feel grateful for that experience right now because it's still like, damn, did I really have to go through all that just to get here? But I think at some point when I start, thriving a bit more, I'll be like, you know what, I'll forget the pain. Kind of like when you go into labor and the pain of the moment is so bad, but then once you've had the baby, then you kind of forget the pain. Like I'm still remembering the pain at the moment, so I'm just like, yeah, no. So anyway, after the 3 years, finally I was done. I didn't get to graduate with my course mates because I failed one of the last little bits we had to do, which was so difficult. And that in of itself was also just set me back from even doing my best on my dissertation. I still passed my dissertation project, but it really set me back mental health wise because I was already burnt out academically. So having to fail that and then resit it was just something that I was not mentally prepared for. And I think that was probably one of the weakest moments I had during my masters, was that last stretch. When I had to submit my Viva and I failed it, and then I had to redo it the next year in January. So this year, January, we did it in April of 2024, but then the resit was all the way in like January of 2025, which is when I was supposed to graduate with my course mates, but I didn't. So I'm graduating in September. Of course, there's going to be a vlog showing you guys my graduation day. That was also another difficult thing. And even after finishing my Viva, passing and, being given my transcript and everything, I had to really battle with the university and the BACP. And in my previous vlog that just came out about starting my private practice, I share a bit more about the struggles in real time as it was happening. That, the university was being quite difficult in terms of like, they didn't want to give me my transcript or my letter or my certificate. Because they wanted to wait for the April board to approve everything, and I'm like, well, April's gonna delay me. Like if I had waited and I didn't push, I probably would have only just recently got my certificate, maybe like this month or last month, because they wanted to take so long. So I had to really push for them to give that to me in order for me to become a member of the BACP, which I finally did in April. So it was a long procedure. Everything was just a struggle. First year was a struggle, second year was a struggle, third year was a struggle, even after just finishing was a struggle. And now I'm just hoping graduation will be the one thing that's actually smooth and easy about this whole journey, because I cannot take any more struggle from this university. And for everybody that's asking me if I'm going to do a PhD, no, I'm not doing a PhD unless you're funding it. So don't ask me unless you're planning to fund my PhD, because I have had more than enough of education, and this really tested me because I always thought like academically I was fine, and I always enjoyed school. Like I never had an issue with school. I got good grades. Like I never struggled with school. But masters, no words, no words. But eventually made it, became a qualified and registered therapist at the age of 26, and I am so grateful for everybody that supported me along the way, like the family and friends that came through for me, like everybody that came through for me and supported me along the way. Thank you so much. You know yourselves, and thank God as well, because God was with me every step of the way as well. Like, whew, the fact that I'm even here right now, and even the fact that I had a client this morning and I had clients yesterday, it's a blessing. Like, it was a long journey, but I'm glad I'm here, and I'm glad I made it through, and I didn't give up, even though I thought I would multiple times, and I felt like giving up multiple times. At one point I was like, you know, let me just take a gap here, sort myself out, and then come back and do it. But I kept pushing through, and it wasn't my own strength, like, at all, because God knows I didn't want to carry on. So I'm here, and that was my journey. That was my story. And I hope it doesn't discourage you, because everybody's journey is so different. Everybody's experience and everybody's journey to becoming a counselor is so different, and that's what this channel is all about. I've shared multiple routes that you can take to become registered, multiple ways, multiple things that you can do to become qualified, no matter what stage you're at in your life or in your career, no matter what age you are as well. So my story is just my story. It's unique, it's very different, and I didn't know anything about anything. I was literally just blindly making it up as I went along and figuring things out as I went along. So sometimes people ask me like, why did you do 3 years as a psychology degree and then do 3-year masters? It's like, I literally didn't know better, and I did not know that I could just do the diplomas. I didn't know about the diplomas until I had to do the diplomas. I didn't know the masters was 3 years. I didn't understand why it was 3 years until I started it. I didn't know so many things. Like I said in my first ever YouTube video on this channel, that the reason I created this channel was to make things easier for other people, because I think this industry is quite simple once you know it, but if you don't know it and you're trying to get into it, it can be so confusing. It's so overwhelming, because there are so many options. It's not like one simple straight option for everybody. There are so many different ways to go about it. So that's why I made this channel, and for me, that's why I ended up kind of wasting time. If I had known what I wanted to do from the get-go, I probably would have just done an undergraduate in counselling and psychotherapy as an undergraduate degree and got qualified straight away in those 3 years, rather than doing 3-year psychology, 3-year masters, because that's 7 years, and the 1 year as a diploma, that's 7 years that, you know, I could have cut down, removed 4 years and just done it all in 3 years. And I could have also not gone to university. I could have just done the level 1 to level 4 counselling diploma. But also, like I said, at the age of 16 or even 18, I didn't know about the counselling diplomas, so couldn't have done that. So all of the things I did was literally just because I didn't know anything, and I didn't know anyone who could guide me, and I asked people, but they didn't know more than I knew. So that's how I ended up here, but I'm glad I got here. I hope that this just shares some light, and I don't know if this video helped anybody, but I hope it did. But in the meantime, enjoy. Everything else on my channel is all there to help you in your journey. And if you want to have a one-on-one session with me to discuss your counselling career and how to become a counsellor, feel free to message me. All the details are in my channel description box or in my channel description. So I hope to speak to you soon, and bye.